So, it all started quietly. Harry didn't even hear the chaos coming. At first, it just felt like silence. Phones stopped buzzing, calendars cleared, people circled back to say nothing. And Harry, with all his good intentions and rehearsed lines about purpose and youth, was left standing there, confused and uneasy. That charity event? It wasn't just a bad day. Oh no, it was a spark that lit the fuse under everything Harry and Meghan had been building. And what followed was explosive. Inside that nonprofit in LA, everything just crumbled. First, the photos from the visit disappeared. Then the captions, then the entire partnership, gone. Not because the cameras were there and that's expected, but because it felt like the cameras were the entire point. The kids, the volunteers, suddenly it all seemed like props in a carefully staged production. Whispers started flying. Staff being told exactly where to stand, children moved for better lighting, volunteers held back mid-hug, and someone even screenshotted an internal memo, treating real people like stage decor. Can you imagine? Normally, this would have been an internet squabble, a few angry tweets maybe, but this time, it hit hard. That nonprofit backed away publicly, with a safe diplomatic statement. But behind closed doors, the message was loud and clear: distance, and it didn't stop there. Big brands, luxury partners, even podcast hosts, they all started stepping back. Negotiations paused. Conversations that were hot one week turned ice cold the next. It wasn't just backlash, it was a downward spiral. And Harry, he couldn't ignore the phrase echoing in his mind: branding collaboration. Branding? This was supposed to be charity, programs, not posts, meaning not media moments. But everything now felt staged, strategic, performative. That word started appearing everywhere, clinging to headlines like a stain. Then came the leaks. An anonymous staffer called the whole event content capture. A royal biographer didn't hold back, calling it narcissism dressed as charity. Harsh? Maybe. But it stuck. And no glossy Instagram post could polish it away. Meghan did what she always does. Rolled out the perfect captions, the elegant hand-on-shoulder photos, the rehearsed phrasing. But the public wasn't buying it. Not this time. Inside their home, the air turned cold. Harry started asking questions. Why wasn't he looped in? Why NDAS for everyone? Why all this staging? Meghan's reply? Jealousy? Bias? The usual defense. But even Harry couldn't unsee the optics. Even he felt the tension when the charity wiped all traces of the visit. That night, he walked the halls alone. Not angry, just embarrassed. Deep gut-level embarrassment, because suddenly it felt like they were living in a bubble where the camera was king, where reality bent to angles and lighting. And Harry, who'd left the royal life to build something real, now found himself in a house of mirrors. Then the emails came. Not the usual flurry of requests for a soundbite or photo op. No, these were different. They asked for space. Space to pause, space to rethink, space to monitor the situation. Harry read through them and felt the words settle like a brick in his chest, because he knew what space really meant. It meant doubt. Meghan's team jumped into crisis mode. Instantly, office lights stayed on past midnight. Assistants were glued to their phones, drafting lines that sounded breezy but meant anything but. Carefully crafted phrases: we value our partnerships, we celebrate community, we're grateful for the opportunity. But there was no apology, not a hint of it. Just PR spin. That's all it was. Instead of addressing the backlash, Meghan doubled down on the one thing she trusted most: the image. There were new photos, a perfectly curated lunch with influencers, glossy posts that screamed, "Look at us." But the static didn't fade. If anything, it got louder. Late-night comedians turned the situation into punchlines. TikTok erupted. One post stitched together every moment where Meghan's vibe felt off. That trip to India where her visit turned out to be more symbolic than helpful. The bananas with quotes for workers. That wildly over-the-top baby shower. Alone, each moment had been brushed off. But now they looked like puzzle pieces, and suddenly, the whole picture wasn't flattering. And Harry, poor Harry, was watching this all unfold in real time. He could feel the public slipping through their fingers, not in dramatic waves, but in a slow, painful erosion. Something you can't PR away. When a tabloid ran the headline "Duchess of Deception" in bold, screaming letters, he didn't even flinch. He just knew. This wasn't a temporary dip. This was a fall from grace. And then, old voices started popping back up. Royal aides, former family contacts, people he hadn't heard from in months. They didn't need to say, "We told you so." Their silence was enough. It was thick with meaning. Inside Team Sussex, the cracks spread fast. Staffers began leaving, not with drama, quietly. They didn't want to be cannon fodder for another scandal. Whispers floated that Meghan had fired her PR team just days after the charity mess, that they had warned her about the cameras, that they begged her not to film the event at all. That hurt the most because it meant this was avoidable, predictable. And if it was predictable, it was preventable. Harry hated that word, preventable. It meant someone had seen this coming. And maybe he should have, too. He tried to retreat into work, doing quiet charity visits, small, low-profile appearances with zero spectacle. He refused extra cameras, hugged people, asked real questions, listened. He just wanted to feel something authentic again. But even then, the photos leaked. One showed him wiping away tears after hearing a boy's tragic story. It went viral. But this time, people praised him. They said he was genuine, raw, human. And then they compared him to Meghan. And just like that, the internet had its favorite narrative. Harry, the real wounded prince. Meghan, the cold, calculated brand. It wasn't fair, not really, but fairness had long left the conversation. The internet doesn't care about nuance. And Meghan? She didn't budge. Instead of softening, she pulled the control in tighter. Every post, every caption, approved personally. She refused to let her image be shaped by outsiders. Advisors pleaded, let it breathe, they said. Show vulnerability. Release an honest video, maybe even an apology. But Meghan snapped. That's exactly what they want, she said, voice clipped, eyes steely. I'm not giving them that satisfaction. And just like that, the room went quiet, because no one could tell her what she didn't want to hear. But the damage was real. 2 brands suspended negotiations. A major podcast series ghosted. One luxury label outright pulled out of their deal, said the alignment wasn't right anymore. Translation: Meghan Markle had become bad press. And charities, the one space that had once embraced her, now hesitated. One education nonprofit in the UK, which had been planning to feature her as a keynote speaker, pulled the invite quietly. It just doesn't feel authentic anymore, someone whispered to the press. Harry? He was crumbling on the inside. He sat at dinner looking across the table at Meghan, trying to find something in her expression. Did she get it? Did she see what they were losing? He rehearsed what he wanted to say 100 times. He wanted to ask why everything had to be filtered through a strategy, why nothing could just be real, why every crisis was met with more branding, not more honesty. But every time he opened his mouth, he closed it again. He was scared. Scared the conversation would spiral into something they couldn't come back from. Scared that the answers would be worse than the silence. So the silence grew, and Meghan, even in that silence, was being watched. Social media tore her apart. Her name started trending with words like fraud, cold, fake. She closed the apps, but the judgment followed her. Into meetings, into sleep, into her own mirror, and one night, she cracked, just a little. She turned to Harry, voice barely above a whisper. Do you think they're right? He didn't answer, and she didn't ask again, because maybe deep down she already knew. The cameras, once their crown, their tool, their weapon, now felt like spotlights. Not flattering, not controlled, just exposing. They were no longer telling a story. They were hunting one, and Harry and Meghan were the prey. Every smile Meghan gave now looked staged. Every silence sounded defensive. Even kindness looked calculated, like she'd memorized it from a script. The warmth was gone, and no filter, no edit, no team of stylists could bring it back. Behind closed doors, Harry felt it all caving in, their brand, their causes, their marriage. He found himself wondering, was this always the plan? Was the mission ever about impact, or had it all quietly become about image? And if it was the latter, had he been blind to it? He missed who they used to be. 2 outsiders breaking free of a system. 2 voices raw and unapologetic, ready to change the world. But somewhere along the way, the mission blurred into marketing. Passion turned into product. And love got lost in the noise. At night, he lay awake beside Meghan, listening to the silence between them. Once, they would talk for hours. Now, words felt dangerous, like any truth might shatter what was left standing. And the worst part? He wasn't sure he could protect her anymore. Not from the public, not from the press, not even from herself. He watched her scroll social media late into the night, searching for signs that people still believed in her, still liked her, that they hadn't labeled her for good, but the comments were brutal, cold, and constant. One day he walked past her home office and heard her crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, tired sob, the kind that comes from somewhere deep, the kind that's been building for years. He wanted to hold her, to fix it, but he didn't move. He just stood there. Because some things maybe can't be fixed, and so now the whispers have begun, louder and more insistent. that Harry's thinking of leaving, that divorce is on the table, not out of anger, out of exhaustion, because the dream they built together, it's cracking fast. And love alone might not be enough to hold it together anymore, not when the whole world is watching and no one's looking away. And no one's looking